Hello everyone, welcome to my Lua tutorial series. Welcome back. Hopefully you've watched the first two episodes of the series or the first episode of this series depending on your operating system, and you've gone through all the steps and you have VS Code installed and you have Lua working on your operating system. So today we're going to be talking about our first actual programming concept, and that is, of course, variables. So what are variables exactly? Well, in programming, we deal with all kinds of data. We deal with numbers, we deal with text, and we deal with true and false values. And we have to have some way of storing that data in some kind of a label that we can then basically just reuse that data later on in our program. And I'm going to show you kind of what that means in a second here. But the first type of data that we like to work with in programming is, of course, numbers. So I'm going to show you how to work with numbers in Lua, how to store numbers in a variable so that we can then reuse them later. So yeah, that's basically it. Variables are just labels that store certain data. That's what you have to know for the sakes of this tutorial. So I'm going to show you what this means right here. So let's say I wanted to print out my age. So let's say my age equals 22, and I wanted to print out that age. Well, basically I just created a variable here called age, and I set it equal to my age, which is 22 in this case. So that's it. That's basically how simple and easy it is to make a variable in Lua. It's just a label called age that will store this value, and whenever we use age somewhere else in our program, the computer will basically know, okay, you're talking about this variable age right here, and we're going to be basically reusing that, and okay, we're going to be using this value of 22. So to show you how this works, let's print it out. Print, I will say my age is, and then I'm going to do two dots here, and then I'm going to do age. These two dots, what they do basically is add this after this part of the print statement here. So they'll just basically add whatever variable you put here after this text, and I'm going to show you how this works. So let's just save our file, go here to our terminal, let's type in lua hello.lua, or whatever you named your file up here. In my case, I named it hello.lua, but of course if you named it something different, then go ahead and type in lua and whatever your file name is here. So hit enter, and as you can see, it prints out my age is 22. So now whenever we have age referenced somewhere in our program, the computer knows, okay, we set age equal to 22, so that's the value that's being stored in this age variable. And so that's basically what variables are and how they work. But there are several different other data types which I'm going to show you. So let's say we have some kind of recipe for, I don't know, baking cookies, for example. And let's say we need a certain amount of flour to basically bake those cookies. Well, flour and basically cookie recipes is often not a whole number. You have something like maybe 2.5 cups, right? But how do you store the half in a kind of computer variable, in this programming variable? Well, there's a different data type which is called a floating number. So that, what I just showed you before, was a whole number, and that in programming we call an integer. But a floating point number is a decimal number. It's any number that has a decimal point. So let's say flour equals, and then 2.5. So we've set flour equal to 2.5. Now let's do this. Let's print this out. Print the amount of flour needed to bake cookies is ... flour. Now hit Control S or Command S, depending on your operating system. If you're on Mac, hit Command S, and then go here into your terminal, and then type in Lua hello.lua, and it'll print out the amount of flour needed to bake cookies is 2.5. And maybe let's make this a little more sophisticated. Let's just add cups at the end here. So let's just clear the terminal, Lua hello.lua, and it'll print out the amount of flour needed to bake cookies is 2.5 cups. Now I don't know if that's exactly true. That's probably too much flour, but whatever. This is just an example. So now the next one that we're going to do here is basically I'm going to be showing you how to store text in a variable. So text is very important. We work with text a lot in programming, and in programming we don't call text text, we call it a string. So a string is basically just any piece of text. To show you this, I'm going to just say name. I'm going to make a variable called name, and I'm going to print out my name, which is just my channel name, Code D Roger. Now this is very important here. What's very important is that you have to have this in quotation marks here. If you don't have this in quotation marks, it's going to be weird, and I'm going to show you this in a second, and you're going to get an error when you try and print it out or do anything with that variable. So let's just print out my name. Again, quotation marks, my name is, and then name. Hit Control S, save it, then go to terminal, and it'll print out my name is whatever you set your name here to. In my case, I set it to Code D Roger. So that's how it works basically. But if I do something like this, Code D Roger, clear it out, and then I try and print it out, you'll see I get this error here, syntax error near print. What this means basically is it doesn't know what you're trying to store in here. It doesn't know what type of data this is. It's not a number, but if you were going to store text, you have to put it in quotation marks to make it very clear to the Lua compiler, which is basically the program that translates this Lua code into code that your computer will understand. You have to make it clear that this is text by putting quotation marks around it. Otherwise, you will get errors like this. So be very careful with that. Now, what happens if, for example, I try and make a variable where I give it a weird name, something like my name. And this is very important. And I try to print out my name is my name. Well, you'll notice here is, again, I will get an error, syntax error near name, because in Lua and in most programming languages, and pretty much all programming languages, you cannot have a variable named like this. You cannot put spaces between your variables. There always has to be no spaces between the name of a variable. So you can do something like underscores. Underscores are perfectly okay. You can do something like this where you capitalize certain parts of the variable name. That's perfectly fine. But you cannot have just a space between a variable declaration like this. It will not work and you will get errors. So make sure that your variable name is all together in one place without spaces, basically. Now the next and final data type that I'm going to be showing you guys today is what's called a Boolean value. Now Boolean is a very fancy word that basically just means true or false value. So to show you and demonstrate this, let's make a variable. Let's call it isProgramming, and let's set it equal to true. And we're just going to go ahead and just print this out. Print is programming. And there we go. We've printed it out to the screen. And is programming is set to true here. You can also set this to false. And then save it. And then go ahead. And as you can see here, it says false now, whereas before it was set to true. So that's another cool thing about variables is you can always change their values later. So for example, if I go here and I go ahead and change the value of this variable, and then I print it out again, you'll see first it says false because we have first set it to false here. And then once we've set it to true and we try printing it out, it prints out true. So that's pretty much all that there is for variables in Lua. There's also one final thing that I would like to end this video with, and that is the difference between a string. So let's just make a string called myString. This is a string, and a character. So as you can see here, there's a pretty big difference. This is a whole bunch of text here, but characters are only one small symbol, and this can be really any symbol. This could be a $, it could be whatever, right? But basically a string, all a string is it's a list basically of characters. And so characters are essentially the very final data type in any programming language. And they're basically just a single symbol in quotation marks, whereas a string is a list of different symbols together. Strings are called strings because they are a string of characters. You can think of it as like an invisible string holding all of these characters together. So yeah, basically that's it for this tutorial. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. And I will see you guys next time in the next tutorial.